I am so glad you guys are here. I don't know about you, but after 2020, I'm ready to rewrite my story to be able to go to 2021 with a whole new clean slate. So we're going to do a few exercises today. They are situations that you can do individually, but I am going to ask for some interaction and some questions as we go. All right. Let's get started. Natalie, if you could watch the chat, because there are times I'm going to ask people to just drop things into the chat. And if questions or anything come up, if you could keep me posted on that. And when I share my screen, make sure I'm sharing the right screen because I get so confused.
Perfect.
All right. So we are going to talk about changing your story and how changing your story can change your life. And it's really amazing. It takes just little bitty, tiny, slight habits that can make huge, impactful changes in your life. So what is your story? Now, I know we all have a story. Your story, when you interact with people, you utilize your story, you use it to make points, to sell things, to interact, to gather information. You do it for so many different things. And what I found specifically over the last 4 years with me is I tend to downgrade my story. So when I want to make a point, it's difficult because I also have that edgy feeling of I'm not really sure people want to hear this. It doesn't really impact them. And we live in a society that is all about me. So it gets frustrating or scary sometimes to share your story. So the most important thing to understand about your story is it is nothing more than have actions that have taken place in your life, situations you have found yourself in, and the emotions that you connect to that. Because when somebody else tells a story similar to yours, you may have some empathy for them, but the hurt and the emotion and the depth of what you feel isn't nearly as much as when it's your story. And they can be identical stories. How many people do we know have gone through a separation or a divorce? And by going through that, everybody feels like, oh, well, I kind of have an understanding. You may have an understanding of the process, and you may feel for the other person, but knowing that person's story is not something you'll ever be able to understand or do. So what emotions have you attached to your story? As I'm asking some of these questions, if you want to drop a little answer down in the chat, please feel free to do so. So what emotions do you attach to your story? So how does your story or your past impact your present and your future? We tend to stay in our stories far longer than we need to. Most of the time, we can cut some of that loose and quit dragging that past all behind us. That luggage and baggage that we have gets very heavy after a while, because when mine first started, I don't know about you, there weren't rollers on the bags. So I'm carrying a lot of it. So let's just make sure that we understand what your past is doing. How does it impact your present and your future? If we're basing decisions on our past, where does that leave our future? You know, the wake doesn't run the boat. If you're looking at the wake behind the boat, you miss what you're seeing in front of you. So what decisions are we basing on the past that may not have anything to do with what's happening, but our emotions we have connected to them do, and it impacts our future. Your story can be your greatest asset, or it can be your most damaging liability. And what I mean by that is, if you've been divorced and Mr. Right comes along or Ms. Right comes along, are you going to give that person a really solid chance? or are you going to base it on the past that didn't work before? Now, I can tell you that my husband has been through that a few times. He's a Marine, and his attitude is if Marines were supposed to have wives, they'd have been issued wives, right along with their rifles and everything else. Well, he's gone through it over and over and over, and I am very grateful that he didn't live in the past, or we wouldn't be together today. So really think about, is it your greatest asset, or could it be a liability? And today is all about taking the piece of your story that could be a liability and making it an asset and creating more. So we live in a real material world. You guys know this. People are going to battle you and fight you on what reality is. And I want you to just think, about 25 years ago, we really didn't know what faxes were. We were coming into computers, but I mean, think about it. The fact that we could have a computer in the palm of our hand that would do everything this thing can do is not something we ever thought about. That goes right along with the cell phones, because they're not just cell phones anymore. They're smartphones. They do everything that they could possibly, that we could do on the computer. But we didn't think about that 25 years ago. Now I'm going to give you an example of this from my own life. In 1975, I went out on a school tour at NASA, and they had the space shuttle. They had, models of it, and they had images of it, and they had video that they'd created of how it was going to come back into the orbit, and it was going to piggyback on a plane, and then it went from piggybacking on a plane to landing. And 1975, I was 14 years old, and I'm looking at this going, that's never going to happen. That's just crazy. That's just never going to happen. And then it did. So there's so many things that we can create in our own lives with our own imaginations that we stop and say, that's just never going to happen. But if you give it the light and the energy and the consistency and dedication, it can happen. Do you guys remember when you used to dream big? When you were smaller and you were growing up and you were thinking about what you wanted to do when you grow up, what did you dream? And how did that work for you? I mean, how did you just think? My parents were all teachers, and my grandmother and my aunts and everybody were teachers. So I had this vision of being a teacher. Now, if anybody knows me very well, you know that may or may not fit me now, but all I wanted then was to be a teacher. Now, I always wanted to be my mother's boss, but I wanted to be a teacher. So when I had that vision, I could see it so clearly. And when I was putting this together and I was thinking about the dreams I had when I was a little kid, I had two very vivid dreams. One was being in the front of the classroom. And I'm showing when I grow up, but when I tell you what I saw. So I saw two chalkboards, not whiteboards or smart boards, two chalkboards, one on the side and one in the front. All across the back were some lockers or some shelves or storage. And all along the right side were windows. So we could always look outside. I mean, kids can't possibly daydream without windows, right? Got to have the windows. And I saw kids sitting in the desks. They had these bright, vivid colored shirts and clothing, and we were laughing and we were having fun and we were learning new things all at the same time. And it was so vivid, this vision. Then the other vision I had is that I was going to be running a multi-million-dollar company, and I was having a board meeting, and I can picture the boardroom where I was and all the other things around it, the chairs, the water, the speakerphone, I mean, everything. And as I was growing up, I thought, okay, which dream do I fit into better? Well, it wasn't the teaching one. So just remember when we used to dream that big, because I don't dream that big anymore. I don't know about you guys, but I have to help myself dream that big. I have to remind myself, how vivid is that going to look? When I do this, when I get to this particular outcome, this is my vision. And if we don't know exactly what that vision is, then we can't get there. Now, how we get there is a whole different thing, but the vision, the outcome, that's the biggest thing. And our story contributes to all of this. So the main mantra that I want you guys to walk away with today is I have whatever I need, whenever I need it, wherever I need it, for as long as I need it. This is one statement can change your story almost instantly. If something comes up in your life and you are completely confused about where to go and what to do, just understand that I have whatever I need, whenever I need it, wherever I need it, and for as long as I need it. If you're a Christian and you believe in prayer and you believe in God, then it's nothing more than just saying a little prayer and giving it over. That's all. It's just allowing you to tap into that piece of you that is a higher self that knows what it knows, what it knows. I have whatever I want, whenever I want it, wherever I need it, for as long as I need it. Okay? So I'll say something like this and I'll get pushed back because, of course, my life is a reality. I can't just change things the way an author will change the characters or the storylines in a story, because reality is solid. Reality is real. Is it? Is it solid? Is it real? Is it just because that's the way it is today? Is that the way it's going to be tomorrow? I know everybody on this meeting today has had something in their life that has happened that didn't appear to be real. People wouldn't have guessed it happened. So when it comes to a big, huge factor of this for me, it's when I was diagnosed with leukemia. I was diagnosed with leukemia and my white blood count was up to 169,000. Your normal blood count is within a 4,000 range. The first thing my doctor said to me was, "Why are you still alive?" I had walking pneumonia. They had to get the fluid off my lungs before they could start the treatment. The nurses and doctors all told myself and my husband, do not Google this. Do not get the information. And whatever you do, if you feel like you have to do that to Larry, do not tell Deanne what that is. I had less than a 10% chance of surviving. But I didn't know that. And because I didn't know that, the first thing I said to the doctor when he told me what I had was, "Well, what's the plan?" And he explained the plan. And as we went through it throughout the whole process, I'd say, "Well, how does this impact? And what does this mean?" And the whole time I was going through it, I could visualize my body healing itself. Now, I was diagnosed on July the 11th of 2016. By Larry's birthday, my husband's birthday, on August the 12th of 2016, I was in full remission. But I still had to go through 6 to 8 rounds of chemo because nobody believed that this could actually happen without coming back. So understand how powerful you are and how powerful what you tell yourself is. The only thing I did for a year was focus on healing my body. What does that look like? How is that happening? My heart was weakened. I asked them to show me pictures of my heart. How is it weak? Where does a strong heart look like? And I went through, and my heart now has no damage because it stopped. For 20 minutes, I was down. So my heart now has no damage, no problems, and I'm on no medication. And I'm the first patient for my cardiologist in 28 years of working with cancer patients that has happened to. So telling your story and knowing your story and believing it is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. So I'm sure you guys are kind of familiar with the Lord of the Rings. Frodo, the guy at the bottom, second from the left, Frodo had a mission. It was his job, it was his story to take the ring. But he was small and he was not capable of defending himself. And so they created the Fellowship of the Ring. We are the heroes in our own story, but that absolutely doesn't mean that we don't ask for help, or that we don't reach out to people that know more or have more experience in situations that we don't. So remember the Fellowship of the Ring. And if you haven't seen The Lord of the Rings, it's a great story because it's very impactful and it really has analogies and metaphors for today. So now there's a lady that I read a lot of her stuff, and I've gone through a couple of her classes. Her name is Marie Forleo. She has a little TV show and a few other little things, but she wrote a book. The name of the book is Everything is Figure-Outable. It is an excellent book. It's all about being resilient and how you can change your life in an instant just by knowing that everything is figure-outable. No matter what they throw at you, whoever they are, you have the opportunity to know that it's figure-outable. Now, it may not be convenient, and it may cost a little bit of extra money, like if a flight cancels and you have to get another flight or that situation, but everything is figure-outable. And she runs her business, she runs everything via intuition, more so than financials, what people deem to believe as reality. She runs it more by what she believes in her heart. So I want you guys, we're going to do a subtle body check exercise because I want you to know how tuned in you are to your intuition. All right. So get comfortable, seated, standing, doesn't matter. Just get comfortable. And I want you to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, a full breath that will completely fill your lungs and allow your mind to settle. Just 3 deep breaths. Be very present in your body. Then ask yourself a question about something or a situation that you would like some insight on. And pay very careful attention to the instant involuntary interior body reaction. And I'm going to ask you a question, your answer to this related to your situation. Does saying yes to this make me feel expansive or contracted? And when you're ready, just open your eyes and come on back. So, expansive or contracted? How many people got expansive? How many people got contracted? So, expansive would mean that it would be something you need to go forward with, right? Because you've got, your body is telling you that. The thing we must remember is our bodies don't lie. Now, we lie. We justified as little white lies. It was better at that situation, but our bodies will not lie. There will be an indicator somewhere that allows, that we will know what our tell is. It's whether or not other people pick it up. Most people only hear the words you're saying and they listen to you so they can respond. They're not listening to you so they can help or interact. They're listening for a response. So I lead my life by my intuition as well. Another way you can do this is you can stand up and you can just take 3 deep breaths and close your eyes, ask yourself a question. And if your body moves forward, that's an affirmation. That's a yes. If your body literally feels like someone's pushing you back, that's a very definitive no. If you're kind of in the middle, it means you haven't decided something else before you make the step to that new thing. There's another piece out there that we haven't noticed. So how do you run your life? Do you run it with, by making it hard? Do you tend to make things more difficult? Or I tend to overthink things. Now, when you overthink things, you talk yourself into and out of so many things that you become stagnant and you do nothing. So the way you run your life is going to indicate what pieces of your story you're also living. You can look back and you can see the things. We're either moving toward pleasure or we're moving away from pain. And if you understand which one you are you moving toward or are you moving away? Then that helps you understand how you're running your life. Do you guys remember the Staples button, the easy button that the Staples office? Okay. So I'm going to get where I'm going in perfect right time. That's another mantra for you to remember because it's true. You will get exactly where you're going in your perfect time. So with this, I want everyone to either, you can't get these anymore because Staples isn't around, but you can make something similar. You can take some red construction paper and put easy on it. And whenever you identify a difficult situation, you press your easy button, you listen to its reassuring message, which is, I'm going to get where I'm going in perfect right timing. That's the message of the easy button. Then you smile and you get on with your day, you repeat as necessary. This is one of those simple little things because sometimes in order to change our story, in order to change our thought patterns, we have to have something physical to make us or provide us with an action. And that's what this easy button does. What we tell ourselves is what we're going to believe. Our limiting thoughts. Some of these limiting thoughts can be, I know no one has ever had any of the ones I've written down here. I have to be perfect. No one has ever felt that way. I know because I don't feel that way when I'm working on these PowerPoints. No, not at all. All right, so my life is harder than anyone else's. Everybody is allowed to feel that way once in a while, as long as you don't live there. If I ignore it, it'll go away. How many ostriches do you have in your family? I have multiple ostriches in my family. And I'm just not the happy type. I'm just not the Everybody else in my life can be happy, but I'm just not the happy type. So when you tell yourself that you have to be perfect, you have just lost all room for growth. Because if you do things only that you're perfect at, do you have the ability to grow? Will you get out of your comfort zone? Or are you going to stay in that comfort zone? So you're actually doing a wrong to you by saying that you have to be perfect and realizing that you'll never reach that next level. You'll never get on that next step because you're not allowing yourself to. This stems, the I have to be perfect, from a huge belief of fear of failure. That's where I have to be perfect comes from. The my life is harder than anyone else's. Everybody's fighting their own battles. Everybody has, this year especially, everybody has been fighting their own situations. You identify your problems. You can give them power and energy for solutions, or you can be worried about how hard your life is compared to everybody else. We cannot get out of a situation with the same thought process as we put us there. So in order to change that, you've got to cut loose of the comparing yourself to others. If I ignore it, it'll go away. Well, our goal is to ignore the problem of life, but it'll put us in a better mental and emotional state. It's not to ignore it because you want to be in a better mental state. So take a good look at yourself and where you are in life and the choices you've made that have brought you to this point. This is an opportunity to beat, this is not an opportunity to beat yourself up. I mean, that's the first place we go when I'll ignore it. We think we have to beat ourselves up about everything, and that's not what this is. It's recognizing it, because you can't put the energy to the solution, to changing that story, without recognition. And I'm not the happy type. I love this one. We have a choice to be happy. So it's a complete choice to be happy. Now, anybody that knows me and my family knows that Larry and I have this rule. Do you want to be happy or you want to be right? Now, very few times does Larry ever say he wants to be right. However, there are times I'll tell him I want to be right for 15 more minutes and then I'll be happy. So you just have to decide to be happy. Is it worth it? Is it worth the energy? Is it worth everything going into it to be right? It's frustrating. I'm not saying there's not emotions connected to it. I'm just saying in order for your life to be more impactful and better, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? So here are some steps to rewriting your story. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to recognize the voice in your head. And I don't care who the voice is. Most of the time, my voice is my mother's voice. I don't think that'll ever go away. But just recognize the voice in your head. Sometimes it's a statement somebody said that I completely took the wrong way because I was not in the filter that I filtered it through. Then you jot down what that voice is saying, verbatim. What is that voice saying? And you guys can do this while I'm talking about it if you want to. Then you're going to evaluate whether this story that you're telling yourself is empowering. If it's empowering, then how can it be useful for you in your life? If it is not empowering, then you're going to write down a different story. What is a story that would be empowering to replace this belief? And when you do things this way, you're typically going to do things based on statements that were made. That way you're not sitting there rewriting a whole entire story when that may not need to be rewritten. What you may need to do is take a comment somebody said and figure out where that emotion, what you heard, what filter are you running that through? What belief system are you running that through? And then you can write down a different story. How would it make it more powerful and empowering? What could have been said? Because people just simply pay very little attention to the words and the tones that they use. They just want to speak. They just want to get that information out there. They don't always acknowledge that it could get out there in a way that is disempowering to everybody when they're trying to empower. And then you start telling yourself that new story. So if you happen to hear that thing again, oh, wait, no, that wasn't the story. This is the story. This is my belief. I just love the beach scene. You got to let it go. You got to let the past go. So why do we let the past go? Well, you got to let it go because sometimes it'll truly get you stuck in quicksand. It won't allow you to move anywhere, not forward, not backward. If you live in the past, we just don't enjoy and embrace the future. And the past that reminds you of things, the past you remember has emotions connected to it. So if I were to ask you, where were you on 9/11? Who were you with? What were you doing? Would you remember? Like it was yesterday, right? How about August the 9th of 2001? Where were you then? What were you doing then? That was a month before. There was a high level of emotion connected to 9/11. There was not a high level of emotion connected to August the 9th. Think about your life and the things in the past that you've held on to. There's emotion connected with them. You've got to be able to surpass and rewrite the story based on the emotion. You've got to take out the disempowering emotions and change it to things that are empowering. So when that trigger happens again, you are able to control your body, control your reaction, control everything. I went to a class once where we made this huge circle And the whole purpose of this exercise was to understand how far you think emotionally you can stop yourself, but your body keeps going. And you would be in a circle and there were people all the way around you, and they would scream out the worst possible things they could. You're hateful, you're ugly, you're stupid, just for 60 seconds. And the purpose of this was to see, does it impact you? How does it impact you? And where can you make the shifts to help you move forward? Well, I was pretty good. My body didn't, I did try to step back, but that didn't work because there were people all the way around me. But I noticed the one thing I couldn't stop was my bottom lip. And my bottom lip would just shake. It was like it, you know, that's the only thing I couldn't. But you also have the ability to ask your body, let your body know, I will process this when I leave this situation. And your body will work with you on some of that. But you have to ask it, because it has to process whatever's going on. And you don't want it to process. Mine gets processed when I'm yelling at Larry. He'll tell you that. It's but that's what you've got to do to begin releasing the past. Here's some ways that you could let go of the past. Figure out why you're moving on from the past is necessary. What's important? How's it going to benefit you by moving on from the past? Identify your emotional habits. What do you do to protect yourself so that the emotions you don't want to have consistently don't come up? Now, remember, by doing that, you're also hindering your growth. But figure out, identify what they are. Condition your mind. We have the ability to condition our minds all the time. This allows life to happen for us, not to us. So conditioning your mind is huge. Focus on personal growth, any shape, form, or fashion that you can, whether that's reading, doing things like today, it makes no difference. Just make sure you have a full focus on personal growth. Surround yourself with positive people. Now, I don't mean Pollyannas that see no, see no bad or reality in anything. I'm talking about people that are your support system, people that you know care about you, and when they see you slipping off an edge or back into an old story pattern, they can say, whoa, 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 don't you have something new that you were going to use for that? Hold on. Do you really want to go back there? Probably, though, the biggest thing you could do is you can give back. Think about the things that have happened in your life that if you were able to share them, you could give that back to somebody else. You could support somebody else. When I go to MD Anderson now for my checkups, I look in the hospital, and I have been in every situation that those patients are in, whether they're wrapped up in a blanket because they're freezing in a wheelchair, or whether they're living their lives and to them this is just an annoyance that they have to come in once a year and get checked because they're healthy as they can be. It doesn't matter. I've been in each of those things. And I also remember when I was wrapped up in that blanket in that wheelchair and I couldn't move, that someone came up to me who had been in my situation and put their hand on my shoulder and said, day by day, it's going to get better, day by day. So what do you think I do when I go now? I give that back, because the one little simple movement makes a complete difference for anybody. One of the things that COVID-19 has done by us wearing masks, it's taken away our ability to see a person smile. It's taken away our ability to lift our spirits by seeing that smile. I mean, our eyes can smile, but nothing is more impactful than a big smile that can completely shift your day. So these are just some ways and suggestions of letting go of the past. Now, I want you to understand that there are 4 human needs 6 human needs that every person has. They're not all as strong You know, they're all going to be different strengths within people. But the first one is certainty. This is the assurance that you can avoid pain and gain pleasure. Well, if something is certain, you're not going to be able to grow, because again, we're going back to that perfection. Uncertainty, variety. This is the need for the unknown, change, or new stimuli. Now tell me someone that's run by this particular need didn't just enjoy this year. You know? So uncertainty and variety. Significance, feeling unique, important, special, or needed. Up around where I have a lake house, I have a neighbor that lives 2 houses down. And every time I see her, she comes up, introduces herself and says, yes, and I still work with the municipality of Irving. And in fact, I've got to go back this week because they just can't seem to manage without me. Now, she used to be the city manager of Irving. She's now in her 60s, but this is how she introduces herself every time I see her, every single time. Would you say she's run by significance? It's very important that people know that she is a unique and important, special person. And she wants that right out there, first thing. Connection and love, a strong feeling of closeness or union with someone or something. Growth and expansion of capacity, capability, or understanding. And contribution. So now we're right back to giving again. A sense of service, a focus on helping, giving to others. Understand that this is what we were put here on this planet to do. It's to contribute, to be selfless, to give back. And that gives you the opportunity to build and grow yourself even more by giving back. So I want you guys, looking at this list, I want you guys to write down your top 3. Which 3 do you believe fit you the strongest? And then I want you to put them in the appropriate order. What do you think is number 1 for you, number 2 for you, and number 3 for you? So another way that you have the ability to determine what needs to be changed is by asking questions. Now there's a little exercise called a question burst. So many times we find ourselves in situations and we ask questions, but the questions that we ask are revolving around, why did that happen? Which will get you nowhere other than where you are. So a question burst asks you to write questions a little differently. So rather than thinking, let's write down better, rather than trying to think of solutions, when the only questions we're asking is about the problem, rather than thinking of solutions, let's ask questions that delve deeper into the problem. Okay, so I'm going to have an example of a gentleman. He's a CEO of a company, and we were having a conversation, and then the conversation went from work and all this stuff to home. He had a teenage daughter at home, and he couldn't understand why they're not getting along. They have always had a great relationship. Why couldn't they? And so we started talking about the questions burst, and he wrote down, in dealing with his teenage daughter, these are some of the questions that he wrote down. Do I listen enough or tend to solve too much? Do I push too hard? Do I hover too much? What is she the very best at? Do I recognize that enough? How is she better than I am? What do her eyes say when she expresses concern? How well do I know who she is? Who should I be if her last name wasn't mine? Would I still feel the same way that I'm feeling? What is uniquely independent about her? What has she learned lately from her own experiences? And by asking these questions, what he found is he'd been focused on how not to lose her. And now he realizes the real question is how to support her growth and flourishing on her own. And that's what he started to do. And their relationship turned great again because it was about her growth, not his loss. So question bursts are set up to allow you to ask more questions about what you think the problem is and how does that impact you and what about you is creating this problem. The questions are super, super powerful. In order to truly change your story, you got to have a breakthrough of some kind. So how do we have this breakthrough? Well, you have it with your strategies, your story. That's a huge part of having a breakthrough, and your state or your mood. Strategies are the shortcuts that'll help you get more done in less time. If you found a way to be highly successful in living an inspired life, it's not luck, it's a strategy. It has to do with doing the little minuscule mundane things over and over again that will shift where you want to be in your growth pattern. It is a strategy. A morning ritual of writing in a gratitude journal is a strategy. Exercising every day is a strategy. You're not going to become fit and healthy and wonderful by sitting on the couch, eating bonbons, watching Hallmark Christmas movies and thinking, oh, my life is going to be so good. I'm going to be slim. And no. What is your strategy? So what is it that's going to push you from through a shortcut? So let's use an example as a weight loss situation. There are multiple weight loss plans out there. And for the most part, they all work when you work the plan. When you work the plan.
Hey, Deanne, can you go back one slide? Someone wants to take a note. Thank you.
You're welcome. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So they have everything that they'll work if you work those plans. But if you don't work those plans, then it doesn't work. And you're going to be that one person that said, oh, I tried that and it didn't work for me. Had nothing to do with the fact that you didn't follow the plan. It just didn't work for you. And I know people have heard this in their businesses as well, that clients will come back and go, well, that just didn't work for me. We need to just do something else. When you know they didn't really try to implement it and put it into place. So what about your story? What strategies are you using? So whether we believe we can or believe we can't, we're going to be right. That's just kind of a paraphrase of a Henry Ford quote. You're going to be the hero of your own story. That's why I put a Superman badge up there. You're going to be a hero of your own story. Make sure you tell that story and tell it truthfully, because most people will tell a story in a selective way. The last time I was at an event where I was speaking about my story and I made the comment of my heart stopped and it took them 20 minutes to bring me back, I had a life coach stop me right there. She said, hold on, stop, say nothing else. And I looked at her and she said, I want everybody in this room to hear what she said. Her heart stopped. She had no oxygen to her brain for 20 minutes, and she's now up here training. Do you know what that means? And to me, it's just part of my story, so I just grazed right over it. And to her, it was like, that's the most impactful part of your story. You've got to let people sink in. But I didn't look at it that way. So the way you tell your story is just as significant as what your story is. And then your state or your moods. how you feel. This is what is most often become the most powerful filter of all. Understand you will filter communication from your clients, from your family, from friends, it doesn't matter, from the guy at the gas station. You will filter the communication that you are intaking through that filter. And if you are grumpy, it's a different filter if you're happy. If you're feeling sorry for yourself, it's a totally different filter of feeling like you got the world by the tail. So a couple of things that you can do related to this: when you're feeling stress, breathe through that stress. It works. And typically what I'll do is I will breathe in for anywhere from 4 to 10 counts. It depends on how stressed I am. And then I will breathe out for that same counting, anywhere from 4 to 10. And it allows my body to settle. And when my body is settled, I can tame my mind. But when the both of them are going at each other, it's difficult to rein one or the other in. And remember that where your focus goes is where your energy flows. If you're focused on the problem, you cannot come up with a solution. So are you focused on what you don't want to be and what you don't want to have and what happened in the past that I don't want it to repeat? Or are you focused on how you want it to look, how you want it to feel? How does it look? How does it feel? Is it bright? Is it dark? Is it framed? Is it open? How are you feeling inside with that? If you were to touch whatever it is that you're wanting to accomplish, what does it feel like? Is it velvety? Is it all of these things? The more you can create that, the stronger your ability to change your story will be. When you change your strategy, you're going to change your results. When you change your story, you're going to change your life. When you change your state, you're going to change it all. 2020, it's time to put it in the rearview mirror and move forward to 2021. Be able to rewrite your story and completely start from where you are. I say that a lot. This is where we are. We're going to start from where we are. But what does that really mean? I know I have people look at me when I say that and like, you just don't understand. You just don't understand where I am. I can't start from where I am. Yeah, you can. This is where you are. You don't want to go backwards. You didn't like it back there. And you're not going to move forward until you begin right here. So at that point, you got to change your state, and you have the ability to change that anytime you want to. So change your story. You can go back years, or you can go back just a little while. In the last month, both of my parents tested positive for COVID. The POA board where I'm building a house has decided that they, under no circumstances, want to approve something I've asked them to approve 3 times, and given them backup and why they should do that. My husband was taking care of my parents, so he was off of work. He did not test positive for COVID, nor did he test positive for the antibodies. He just didn't get it. I go up there to help, and I end up getting shingles. So it's, you can look at all this stuff and it could be like, oh my gosh, what's next? Or you can look at all this stuff and say, okay, I'm going to slow it down. Apparently I've been focusing on the wrong thing, and you're just stopping me in my tracks to figure this out. And quite frankly, that's how I looked at leukemia. I felt like somebody, a higher power, was trying to get my attention. I wasn't listening, and then leukemia hit, and I didn't have a choice. I had to reboot everything. So it may be time. That's what 2020 was. It was a reboot for the world. So take your 2020, pick the things out that you're bringing along with you, change those things, and move into 2021 with new goals and new ways of thinking about things. Because goals this year, after what people went through last year, I think they're going to look a little different. I think people are going to put some contingency goals in there that if something shifts, they have a way of moving in a different direction. We learned to pivot this year. Next year's about power. Changing your story will start that. So I thank you for being here today. I appreciate all your time. In January, on January the 12th, I'm going to be doing something related to goals. It may be pivot to power, because we did pivot this year. And most people will already have their goals written, which is perfect. If you don't, no problem. And then we'll move forward with taking a look at the goals and see if we can make sure that everything will set you up for success, no matter what happens in 2021. So we're going to do that on January the 12th. And the information on that will be coming out soon. Okay. So thanks, everybody. I want you guys to have a wonderful day and get out there and be your beautiful, wonderful, powerful selves.
Thank you so much, Deanne. Good job.
Thank you, Deanne. That was amazing.
Deanne, you rock.
I'm telling you.
Well, thanks, guys.
You rock.